Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time of the day it is over where you're listening to this episode, the 69th episode of the Yellow Card Podcast. 69, nice. That's right. We're having fun here. This is a fun podcast, and we encourage all sorts of sports activities here. As long as you're dropping a sweat, we encourage it. Anyways, episode 69 of the Yellow Card Podcast presented to you by Couch Guy Sports. We are the soccer podcast of the network. And we are proudly sponsored by Exogun and Shocked Energy. If you ever need a massage just to relax on the couch as you're watching sports and entertainment, head over to www.exogun.com and use the code CGS10. We'll hook you up with 10% off if you order today, and make sure that you get your product shipped out to you as soon as possible. Now, if you're ever feeling low of energy and just need an energy boost and just, something to get you going without utilizing a lot of caffeine, do me a favor, check out shockedenergy.com. Head over to them, buy their merchandise. Jones has some of their merchandise. It's absolutely beautiful. But their green apple flavor box, as well as their watermelon box, absolute amazing flavors that they have. And even better, use the code CGSN for 10% off your order today and get that order going to you as soon as possible as well. Doesn't matter where you live because they ship worldwide. They got you covered. On today's episode, we got a lot to talk about because the January transfer window has finalized. It's closed as of yesterday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's been a volatile transfer window, but finally on the last day, as everyone encourages you in the world of soccer, wait until the last day because that is when the most activity happens. You have about 3 weeks of build-up rumors and activity that could be happening and whatnot. But finally, on the last day is when clubs tend to manage to do their damage. And boy, do we have a doozy of a January transfer window. Stuck some winners and losers here because I think there's definitely some winners. There's definitely some losers and some that might have done just fine with, not doing any action at all during the January transfer window. So in your opinion, Chris, I know you were away for a little bit in Arizona, which kudos. I saw that you went to a Liverpool bar over there. That looked fantastic. That looked a great time. So, but in your opinion, who are some winners and who are some losers of the January transfer window?
I mean, I think you and I both can agree that the last day of the big winner was none other than Everton. Bolstering that midfield, getting Donny Van de Beek and Dele Alli, I think is monumental for them, not only to avoid relegation, but this could be a great creating piece for them within the next few seasons as well, depending on how long these two stay with Everton. I like the El Ghazi move they made earlier. When they got rid of Digne, they got him on loan. Donny Van de Beek's also on loan, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
But Dele Alli, they have outright. Yep. I think Van de Beek's going to end up staying there. And I think he's going to make a big impact for Everton. And United's going to sit there and be like, wow, why did we not play this guy more often than not? And this is stuff that you and I have been talking about for months on end now when it comes to him. Another winner, realistically, I mean, I kind of like, besides Aston Villa, I feel like Aston Villa's one that already won with the Coutinho and Lucas Digne signing, and then getting Robin Olsen on loan helps them big time. I kind of like what Brentford did a little bit. Getting a guy like Christian Eriksen to come back from the Premier League for the rest of the season, I think is good. And then they had just a couple small little pieces that they added that I think could be good fits for them. Like I think Jonas Lawsey from Midland would be a good little piece for that team. And then they got Satona from Nice on loan. So I think that those are two that kind of really stick out for me for the winner aspect of it.
Okay. What about some losers?
I mean, one of the key ones is going to be Leicester City. Leicester City with no additions. You're sitting in the middle of the table. You desperately need a shakeup of some sort, and literally not one move coming in. All the moves coming out. To me, that made absolutely no sense to me. Arsenal was another one. They really didn't make that major move to solidify themselves in the top six. And I think the same for West Ham. Both of those teams we expected to make a big move because they desperately needed to make a move. And I don't know. for me, I think there were more losers than winners in this January transfer window, just based off of the lack of movement that we had. And even for me, a quiet loser kind of, it's going to be Tottenham a little bit. Tottenham, they bring in a guy like Bentancur, who's young. He's got some talent. They get Kuleveski on loan, both from Juventus. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're good signings, but you lose a guy like Dele Alli. You let Giovanni Lo Celso go on loan to Villarreal. You lose a guy like Brian Gill. Ndebele going to Lyon on loan. Just pieces like that, and you really only bring in that for Antonio Conte. Just something didn't add up there.
Okay. Yeah, so for me, I think a 4-way tie almost for winners. Definitely Everton. I think they did things right. I think Moshiri finally understood the message from the fan base that they're just not happy with the club, with how the culture is going, that they needed to do a drastic change. So therefore, even though the main person that they wanted to appoint was somebody with history for the club, such as Wayne Rooney, but Wayne Rooney rejected the job because he wants to finish what he was hired to do at Derby County, and that's respectful. I respect that, and I think he's handled this like an absolute professional as he is. So I'm glad that Frank Lampard got the immediate opportunity. But like you said, the additions of Donny van de Beek on loan, which is a fantastic loan move, considering that they'll definitely need to use him, and he's gonna want to have some playtime with Frank Lampard at the helm, who knows what Van de Beek has to offer. Guaranteed to see this guy be in the center defensive mid position, maybe even in a creative position where he's a playmaker that will finally complement what Richarlison is doing for this club. So he's covering 3 bases all in there all together with just one move. Nevertheless, adding somebody like Dele Alli, who is an absolute lethal threat right down the middle, somebody who needs that confidence boost and who's going to get it from somebody like Frank Lampard, who's going to realize, listen, Ali is a fantastic addition to this club, brings a massive amount of talent. And just because, at the time when he was being dealt with Mourinho, maybe he didn't fit that scheme. That doesn't mean that he doesn't fit the scheme somewhere else. And with Conte, he was fitting the scheme, but the problem is that, and I'll get into Tottenham in a little bit, part of their problem is that they got way too many pieces that basically all do the same exact job that Dele Alli could do. So therefore, moving Dele Alli and letting him go, letting him be sold, Tottenham realized that it was time to let him go. And at the same time, it was best for the player to move on so that he can actually come back to the levels of value that he once had when Pochettino managed this team. I love the additional moves that they made to kind of clear up some of the room and all that stuff. And I love the fact that they also had the money to be able to invest, which is very, very, very essential, especially as the summer transfer window will also be busy for Everton. There is no doubt in mind that Frank Lampard is going to want to build Everton like crazy, and he's going to take them to the levels that he took Chelsea as well. This could possibly be probably another Cinderella story, much like Roberto Martinez once was with Everton at his time. Another winner for me was Barcelona. Barcelona made a gigantic move, getting Adama Traore from Wolves. That was a fantastic move for them. It absolutely increases their chances of being able to finally have some scoring potentials within their club. But in addition to that, on a free move, on a very, very free move, basically a free agency move, after Arsenal dropped a contract with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, they got Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang to sign with Barcelona. The details of that contract still have yet to come, but one of the main details is that they got him on a free signing. So there's no harm financially to Barcelona. There's no harm to Arsenal as well. Both parties agreed to clear the waivers and all that stuff. So it's a great signing for Barcelona. I guess they really are backing away to kind of make some moves that they need to make. And I think in a way, kind of, the toxicity that there was with in Arsenal, Jesus Christ, it kind of needed to end. And I'm glad that it ended so sporadic that Aubameyang kind of took a chance on himself and was like, I'm just gonna fly over to Barcelona, hope for the best. And the best came out overall for this thing. Another gigantic winner, in my opinion, was Liverpool. Getting that signing of Luis Diaz. They definitely needed his talent. They definitely needed to add some depth within the wings. And I think Luis Diaz brings this. Every time that Liverpool played Porto, he was their toughest person to cover. Klopp has said it himself. It was probably the toughest challenge that he's had to cover one player, having to put three defensive pieces on one player was really just not beneficial at all, because then it left a lot of gaps in between for Porto to be able to create the game that they have. And for me, last but not least, also Newcastle. Newcastle building up on the team here, getting some pieces that they needed. They got the arrival of Bruno Guimaraes as well, which is a gigantic signing. The guy's a Brazilian talent from Belo Horizonte. He has a promising career ahead of him. But on top of that, Matty Tarjay and some of the other signings that they have made, really, really starting to like what Newcastle's trying to do and what their end game is here. For me, a loser definitely has to be kind of agree with you, Tottenham. Tottenham is definitely one of the losers, but not a gigantic loser though, because they have had some issues with their financial books. They've needed to clear some waivers. They needed to clear some wages as well. If they've done that, these low moves allow them to be able to explore their realistic options come summertime, when there's far more agents that are going to be in the free market, and a lot more youth also to explode from. So for me, I think Conte and Paratici kind of did the right thing here by holding off and not being as active in the January transfer window. It just sucks that there's so much talent that left their team. As you mentioned, Lo Celso, Brian Gill, Dele Alli. The list goes on and on and on. Another loser for me. Kind of agree with the Arsenal take in a way. But I think one of the biggest losers, actually, believe it or not, in my opinion, definitely has got to be easily Leicester City. They needed to get some signings. They needed to get moving, and they didn't do any. One of the quiet signings that has gone under the radar, though, is the amazing signing that Manchester City just made with Julian Alvarez from River Plate, coming straight from the Argentinian league, straight to the English Premier League. What people fail to realize is that this guy is super young, super talented, an absolute lethal opponent in the offense, and this might be a sneaky, very sneaky, but very good signing by Manchester City. Now moving on, because we got a lot to talk about here today. Manchester United, just when things were going in their direction, when things are starting to flourish a little bit for Rangnick, boy, do we have a doozy to deal with. Manchester United just recently announced that they would be basically releasing at this point their superstar player, youngster Mason Greenwood, over allegations and massive investigation going on right now of domestic violence and some more. It is I can't even begin to describe it. It's a very unfortunate moment to be dealing with right now. Just like I said, just when things were starting to turn around, this hits, and it hits home, because there's a lot of hope going forward for Manchester United, especially with this youngster who kept a very important role of the roster with Manchester United. What are some of your thoughts here, Chris?
It's just, again, it's one of those things that's just tough to see a young kid with promising career not being in the right headspace in certain times. And it's because did I think Mason Greenwood was an all-world talent? Not necessarily.
No,
But
yeah,
did I think
I
that
wouldn't think so either.
did I think he could contribute at a high level for years to come? Absolutely, 100%. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to see that. And if we do, it's not going to be with Manchester United. So for me, I'm hoping Mason Greenwood gets what he needs to help take that next step forward. But it's going to be a long journey back for him. And he's still relatively young, so if he can fix it, he can come back in the Premier League. I'm sure that there'll be plenty of teams that would want his services just based off of his abilities alone.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, one of the essential pieces that people have failed to realize here, and I'm gonna shed some light on it because people were criticizing heavily on Rangnick's tactics and everything that he's trying to do within the club. And one of the major pieces that got a lot of criticism, especially from the media, was the fact that Rangnick, before signing his contract, he said that he needed to have, and it was a must-have at all costs, or he would not agree to this contract, was to have a team psychologist. This is a professional coach who realizes that right now, more than ever, in the world of sports, whether it's football, baseball, hockey, American football, whether it's, whatever you want to call it at this day and age, mental health is at the front and foremost important aspect of the world of sports. And it's not being taken seriously enough to realize that there are some things that need to be done, especially when you're managing, a young core of talent. Rangnick's priority was to have a team psychologist so that he could understand where the mentality really was at United and have to draw a plan from there moving forward. One of the reports that came out, which it's an independent report, so we'll treat it lightly until more reports come out and can substantiate the information that was given in this report. However, it was important that they stated that some of these sessions that they had with Greenwood and some other players were kind of alarming. That there was a concern of depression, there was a concern of instability being a factor there, and now seeing these allegations come to light, it's clear that more than ever, like, a team psychologist should really be one of the primary factors on all clubs around, especially as we're having far and far more younger talent that, some of these players' stories, as you listen to their stories and you get to know them, it's very rough, humble beginnings. So, like Chris and I both said, wishing the best of the possible outcome here, for Greenwood, for Manchester United, for all parties involved in this investigation. It's unfortunate to see it happen, but it's a pitiful thing at this moment. It's so common to see it happen that it's just it's very unfortunate. The world of sports doesn't really need that, and I'm kind of glad that Manchester United kind of is leading here by example. So, but moving on. Another thing that we got going on in the game of football right now is the World Cup classifiers.
Qualifiers,
Qualifiers, whatever you want to call them. We got the World Cup qualifiers going on. Central and North America and Concacaf, and then we got South America and Conmebol. Excuse me, Jesus Christ. Chris, why don't you give an update on to where Concacaf is right now, what we're looking at, and what the picture might come out to look like for the World Cup Qatar 2022.
So as of right now, for the CONCACAF, the top 3 teams that would get in as of right now are as follows: Canada, U.S., and Mexico. 4th place currently is Panama. Costa Rica in 5th, El Salvador 6th, Jamaica 7th, Honduras 8th. Honduras is already eliminated from qualifying for the FIFA World Cup as well. So for me, I think the U.S. have kind of shot themselves in the foot here. Losing to Canada, now you have to do a lot more work. If you beat Canada, or even if you drew with Canada, you would have a little bit more of an edge here. But with their schedule coming up, I mean, tonight, the night that we're recording, February 2nd, they have to play Honduras, which is a tough team. They play them at Alliance Field in St. Paul. It's a tough game. Then you have Mexico. Mexico's a tough game. You get them towards the end of March. Then you have to play Panama, a team that's looking to overtake you and automatically qualify for the World Cup. And then they play Costa Rica. So those are 4 tough games that they have to play to end their World Cup qualifiers. And if they don't finish in the top 3 here, then they move on to the Interconfederation playoff. For me, the big thing for them is they need to take care of business. And what they need to do is they need to beat Honduras tonight. Then they need to beat or even draw with Mexico. You beat or draw with Mexico, you're setting yourself up in a good way here. Then Panama, you need to beat Panama. You beat Panama, you automatically qualify for a World Cup. This USA team needs the World Cup for 2 reasons. One, this group needs to be able to play together in a World Cup before the World Cup comes to the States in 2026. And 2, they desperately need this because U.S. soccer it's up there again. It's probably the highest of stock that it's been in quite some time now. They need to be in the World Cup in order to continue up on that stock. If they're not in the World Cup, that stock is plummeting and it doesn't look good. Just knowing that the only time they haven't qualified for the World Cup based off their performance in over 12 years because they automatically get into the 2026 World Cup.
Yeah. No, I mean, very clear picture going on in CONCACAF. I agree with Chris. I think the American team has a lot of opportunity here. They need to just find their chemistry, though, because I don't know if you watched the last game, but my God, did they look lost.
No.
They look.
Canada's a good team. Don't get me wrong. They're good. They're tough. They have the leading goal scorer in the World Cup qualifiers in CONCACAF right now. And what's his name? Why am I drawing a blank on his name?
Dejan Buchanan?
No, he's only got 2. It's Laren and then Jonathan David. Both of them have combined 9 goals for Canada.
Yep.
So that's big, and they need, if they get a guy like Alphonso Davies back as well, that already adds to the fold of how good this Canada team also already is.
Agreed. Absolutely. No, definitely no credit to be taken away from Canada. They're on a phenomenal run, on a generational run right now, one that could deliver a lot of history for this Canadian soccer team, because for years Canada was not a very strong team, but this year they have probably the best that they've ever had in 15, 20 years now.
So realistically, in tonight's slate of games for the U.S. team, you need to win and you need Mexico to beat Panama.
Yep.
Because if you win and then Mexico beats Panama, you and Mexico are still tied in points. And Panama, instead of being 1 point, is now 4 points behind you.
Exactly.
So that gives you the game at edge. Then if you lose or draw to Mexico and Panama beats, who they have after? Panama beats Honduras, then again, you're still only a couple points ahead. And then that game against Panama, you control your own destiny. You need to win this game tonight. This is a must-win game tonight for the U.S. national team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Very important game. Very important. A lot on the table. So go U.S. Team and get it done. Now moving on to CONMEBOL. My God, what a boiling hot pot this is right now in South America. We got 2 teams that are all set, good to go. They're on to the next round. They could literally bring their bench. Nothing will happen to them. So the current standings in this Conmebol series right now is Brazil in first place, 12-3, with 39 points, haven't lost a single game, going on one of their hottest streaks right now. Argentina the same way, they're 10-5, 35 points, have been unbeaten the past 19 games, going on a really long streak here. Ecuador in third place, surprising the rest of CONMEBOL right now, with a phenomenal team, a phenomenal young core, 7-4-5. They're in 25 points. They're in third place. They're safe, good to go. Now, the next 4 teams, every single one of them still have a very clear chance, depending on a lot of variables, but still have a very good chance. Uruguay right now is in fourth place, technically classifying onto the World Cup. 6-4-6, 22 points. Peru 6-3-7, 21 points. Chile 5-4-7, 19 points. And Colombia 3-8-5 at 17 points. Technically speaking, all of these teams right now are still very much in the race. They still have 2 games to go. Yes, Chris.
Bolivia still can qualify, but they can only qualify via interconfederation playoffs, technically.
Yeah. So right now, both Colombia and Bolivia can qualify via what Chris just mentioned. Paraguay and Venezuela are technically out. There's no way for them to even be in this competition at all.
I'm pretty sure Colombia would need a lot of help, but they still have a chance to qualify directly into the World Cup.
So as we speak on Colombia right now, not because it's my country or anything, but to factor onto the talent that they have, because they have Luis Diaz, James Rodriguez, Radamel Falcao, and a bunch of others. For Colombia, it is crucial. It is the most important task of their lives right now, if they want to go on to Qatar 2022, to win both games. Thankfully for them, the next 2 games are a decent slate. They play Bolivia March 22nd, I believe, or 24th. March 24th. And then they play Venezuela on the 29th. So thankfully, they have about a month and a half to rekindle whatever they need to rekindle, get their batteries recharged and whatever. But here's the little caveat. They need for Peru to either lose or tie against Uruguay.
Mm-hmm.
And they need Chile against
Chile's got Brazil, right?
To lose. They need Brazil to win this one, which Brazil and Colombia have a long history, and I'm not sure how much Brazil will be able to help here. They could win it. They could go ahead and go arrogant and win it, go 42 points and not bother with a losing streak. But a factor here could be a tie score between the two, because every time that these two have confronted each other has been a very physical affair. Following up to that, on the next game, on the 29th, for Colombia, it is important for them to win by at least 2 goals against Venezuela. They need for Peru to lose, and they need for Chile to lose in order for them to secure that 5th spot, or they could have Uruguay out of nowhere just lose that last game as well. And because of goal differential, Colombia could technically classify as in 4th place, and they would need to beat Venezuela by a total of 3 goals. There's a lot of factors here to be played, a lot of what ifs, and a lot of scenarios to come into place. But technically, for South America, Brazil, Argentina, and Ecuador are in. Everyone else, up until Paraguay and Venezuela, are very much alive. March 29th. Can't wait for that. Can't wait for that day to finish this madness.
I had a weird one. I'm pretty sure Ecuador can still qualify directly, but they're not automatically in. I think because worst comes to worst, say they stick at 25 points, say they lose the next 2 games, right? I'm pretty sure they can at least finish no lower than 5th in the table. and they can qualify via the Interconfederation playoffs.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken. But the World Cup as a whole this year, it's going to be a one of a kind World Cup because we're so used to seeing it in the summertime, but with how bad it gets in Qatar, we're getting it late fall, early winter. And I don't know about you, but I'm very curious to see what this slate looks like. I know we already have, I think 15 of the teams are already qualified. Qatar, obviously, first time ever being in the World Cup, host nation, they get it every time. But some of the other ones, you already mentioned Brazil, you already mentioned Argentina. Iran's in it again. South Korea's in it again. Germany, Denmark, France, who won it in 2018, Belgium, Croatia, Spain, Serbia, England, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. Netherlands coming back after missing it in 2018. So we've seen what some of these teams have done. Some of these champions have already already won. So, for example, we have France, Germany, Spain is the last three champions that are already in. What are some other teams that you're kind of curious to see if they get in or not? Because I know that unfortunately one of Italy and Portugal will not be in it because of how that whole draw ended up after neither of them won their groups. So what are we thinking for potential winners here? As we already have 15 of the 32 teams that have already qualified.
I don't know, man, because it's very much open in a lot of ways at this point. Like I said, in South America, you have all the scenarios that we just talked about. In Europe, I'm pretty sure that there's a couple other teams that still have a chance, if I'm not mistaken.
They still have they got three. There's three teams that are going to come from it. So basically, they have their runner-ups got seeded again. And basically, what happens is they play, and whoever wins that path gets it. So there's three spots there. So I'm trying to pull up what the matchups are in those. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
But I know that there's a chance that we literally get a match where we see Portugal and Italy, where the winner goes to the World Cup and the loser does not. Let's just talk about that matchup real quick. Because, obviously Portugal, it's a big story. And Italy just coming off a Euro win, they desperately, I think, need to be in the World Cup again. So what are your thoughts on that again?
I think realistically, Portugal would be the one to move on. Because there is so much in line there, and knowing that this is basically Ronaldo's last World Cup, I feel like he's gonna play the game of his life at this point to get into that World Cup. We all know Cristiano Ronaldo and his theatrics to come back from deficits, so it would not surprise me at all if this is a comeback victory for them. For Italy, yeah, it'd be a shame if they don't make it because they won the Euro, the Euro tournament and all that. But that team is so young still that
I think it'll ruin a little confidence though, not making the World Cup.
That there is a lot more for them to explore after that. Again, though, there is so many variables that could go on here that it'd be insane not to not to call it down the middle and just say, hope the ref has fun calling this game.
So those are also the same as the last two Conmebol. So Italy and Portugal in Pat C, their semifinal matchups are as follows. Italy is playing North Macedonia and Portugal is playing Turkey. The winner plays on March 29th. The winner of those two games. Path B, Russia and Poland, and then Sweden and the Czech. The winner of those two games meet. What do you think of that? Because I really like this Poland team.
I like the Polish team as well, and I think I would move forward with Poland as well. Yeah.
Okay. And then Path A, Scotland and Ukraine and Wales and Austria. This is a tough one, I think. Those four. I lean towards Wales out of there, but I really like this Ukraine team.
I like Ukraine a lot, but I think we're gonna lean with Wales as well. I think Wales
Okay.
has written a beautiful story as of late. So
those are the other 3 teams from UEFA that can qualify. We already talked about Concacaf and Conmebol, and then Iran and South Korea have already qualified based off of where they stand in their group stage as well. But no, I mean, the World Cup's going to be a phenomenal thing this year because it's going to be a once in a lifetime thing because we're getting it instead of in the middle of the summer, we're getting it like we talked about earlier, late fall, early winter, which is very much so ideal.
Exactly. And keep in mind, the only reason why this is happening in the winter is because of the extremely high and risky temperatures that it is during the summertime in Qatar. It's extremely hot and then extremely cold at night. Therefore, it's just not feasible for these players to risk their health and conditioning over this tournament. Therefore, moved over towards the winter, where it's far more manageable. But with that said, episode 69 of the Yellow Card Podcast here concludes. Thank you all so much for having tuned in. Make sure to check out couchguysports.com. Check out all the blogs, all the podcasts, all the cool merchandise we got going on. It seems like one of the podcasts has a very strong announcement coming up soon. So make sure to follow us. I believe it's the Couch Guy Sports podcast that has an announcement coming up very soon. So make sure to stay tuned to that. But with that said, Chris Jones, Diego Galvez signing off. Until next week, thank you all for tuning in. See you guys soon.